All right. Hey, silly beans. How's everybody doing? It's Kayla. I'm just here making some videos, and this video is going to be about popcorn jars, grain jars, whatever you want to call them. So I'm going to show you real quick what you're going to need. Well, most of what you're going to need. I'll probably forget something, but anyways. So you'll need your popcorn. I ordered this off of Amazon. I'm doing 2 bags today. And you can use yellow or white, whatever you have or prefer. And you're going to need your jars. And you're going to need, you're going to need something to strain your popcorn with because we have to dry it. You can use colanders. You can use a towel laid out on the counter. I made a mesh draining thing because I do so much at a time. So I'll show you guys that later. This is a canning funnel. It just makes it easier. You don't actually need this, but it does help. So yeah, you need that. And then you need a big pot to boil your popcorn in. This is what I do all of my myco work in. I don't work in that at all. And then, yeah, something to rinse the popcorn out in. And some foil, of course, for when we put it in the Instant Pot or steam bath. And I believe that's all the stuff that you actually need. I don't think I forgot anything. So I'm going to go ahead and get my popcorn dumped into my bowl to rinse it out, and then we will be right back. Oh, stop moving. Okay, so what we're doing here is I already have my pot on the stove, so I can start letting my water get to a boil. You want to bring it to a rolling boil, and then you want to turn the water down to let it simmer, because you don't want to boil your popcorn. You want to simmer your popcorn. So here I'm just rinsing the popcorn. Really don't have to do this. I just like to do it. But you'll see anything weird or gross in it. And also when you're boiling it, anything that isn't really good or like cracked kernels or anything will float to the surface, and you can just pull them out then too. But so yeah, I'm just going to dump this water off and let my water come to a boil. And you want enough water to where you'll have at least an inch of water over your popcorn while you're simmering it. Basically, you just want to make sure the popcorn is submerged very well. And yeah, so we will be back as soon as my water gets to a boil, and then we'll dump them in. Okay, so there were a couple of other little things that I wanted to let you all know. So I drained the water off of this, and you don't really have to worry about draining all of the water off because you're going to be dumping it into more water anyway, so it really doesn't matter. Just drain what you can off, and then after our water starts to boil and then we get it down to a simmer, we'll dump it in. But I wanted to tell you guys also that you can use deer corn, and you can also use whole oats that is like used for horse feed. And there's a lot more cleaning involved before you boil it. So like the step that we just did, you would actually have to take the time and get a bigger bowl and submerge it and pick out all of the extra nasty bits. So that is another option. And I do want to try the oats and the actual deer corn itself, because I have yet to try either of those. So hopefully maybe we'll try that out, and I'll make some videos of me trying it and figuring it out for the first time. But I think that's all that I wanted to tell you for now. Yeah, so just make sure you have plenty of water in your pot while you're letting it come to a boil, so that we have enough over our popcorn. And yeah, I think that's it. I am going to enjoy my wine and wait on this water to boil. Okay, now we have our water up to a rolling boil. So now we have it turned up pretty high, so we're going to turn it down and let it come down to a simmer before we add our popcorn. And the process is pretty much the same no matter if you use popcorn or deer corn or whole oats or even rice, really, but the only difference is the time that you're going to boil these things. So like for brown rice, you don't want to boil it long at all. You want to bring your water to a boil and boil it for maybe 3 minutes. You want to maybe halfway cook the rice. And you also want to leave a little bit moist when you're putting it in the jars, whereas with popcorn or the oats or anything else, you want to let it pretty much completely dry before you put it in the jar. So that's really the only two big differences there. So now we've got it down to a simmer. Keep it at about like a little above half, because when we pour the popcorn in, it is gonna take the temperature down a little bit. But again, you don't have to be sterile at this point, because you're still going to sterilize it. So this part is not a sterile process. So we're just going to dump all this popcorn in, and I probably lost the kernel. That's okay. So we're just going to dump it all in. I actually way overestimated the water, but that's okay. We're just going to get all that out. So we dump it all in here, and then we're going to set a timer for 45 minutes. But we want to come back and stir it occasionally. So I would probably stir it every like 15-20 minutes. And then we will strain it and dry it and go from there. So right now I'm just going to let this, bring it back up to about a simmer, and then I'm going to set my timer, and then I will, well actually I'll probably show you guys whenever I stir it too. So I'll check back in with you guys in about 15 to 20 minutes. Side note, I just wanted to show you guys my shirt. It's my favorite shirt. I love it. Also, all pink. Yeah. See? Even my socks. Oh. So yeah, I almost died just now, as you guys could see. Just trying to show you guys my shirt. Story of my life. But yeah, all pink. Shirt, pants, socks, hair. What do you know about making mushrooms spawn in all pink? Okay, I'm going to stop being goofy now. So, on a real note, now you can see that this is how you want the water to be whenever you have your popcorn actually in the water. You want it to boil, or not boil, you want just a few bubbles. You don't want it to be like a rolling boil. You want it to be a light simmer. You just want the water to be really hot and a little bit bubbly. You can see there's just a few bubbles coming up every now and again. So that's basically what you want for when you are boiling your popcorn. So we're going to give it a stir. And also at this point, anything bad like cracked grains, or sometimes you'll find like a black piece or something in there, any of that would float to the top, and you could scoop it out as you see it, and stirring it also helps any of that to come loose and float up to the top. But so there's that, and we've got it stirred, and we will be back as soon as it's done boiling, simmering, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so it has been 45 minutes, and I just want to show you guys how to check to make sure that your popcorn is ready to be dried. Also, I wanted to tell you all that you can add gypsum or worm castings, or some people add coffee, also coffee grounds, either used or unused, before they boil. You can do that also. It's, I guess, used for nutrients. Well, I mean, I know that the gypsum and the worm castings are used for calcium, and the coffee, actually, I think I'm going to try that next time. I meant to try it this time, but it's supposed to help with nutrition and also give it, because popcorn is a bit large. So while mycelium can colonize it and digest it, the coffee helps give it something smaller to attach to and digest while it's working its way to the popcorn, if that makes sense. But so you're just going to grab a kernel out like that, and you want to squeeze as hard as you can, and you shouldn't be able to break it with your fingers. No matter how hard you try, you shouldn't be able to break it with your fingers. But if you bite it, it should break in half pretty easily when you bite it. And then you should be able to kind of squish it after you bite it. And there should still be a hard piece in the middle. You should still see a little bit of white in the middle. You don't want it to be fully, like, completely wet in the middle. And the popcorn also doubles in size, so this is quite a bit of popcorn. So I'm going to now set up my draining device, and I will be right back with you guys. Alright, so at this point, you're going to want to strain your popcorn and kind of lay it out to dry. So you can either use colanders, which I kind of find them to be inconvenient. Like, yeah, you can use it to drain all the water off, or the most part of the water off of it, but laying it out to dry, it takes a lot longer, and you have to work with it a lot more because you have to come and stir it along to kind of help the water evaporate out. So, but you can use colanders and strain it. I made this out of, I think it was like a laundry rack or something. So it's just mesh, and I will show you right now. We're going to use it to strain and dry our popcorn. Pour some over here. Some over here. And there we are. One scraggler in there. Okay. So at this point, no matter if you drain it and leave it in the colander, or if you drain it in the colander and then put it on a towel or paper towels and lay it out to dry flat, you need to kind of spread it out, and don't rinse it or anything like that, especially if you use coffee or gypsum or worm castings or any kind of added nutrients, because that'll just defeat the purpose. But we want to kind of spread it out as flat, relatively flat as we can get it. And then every like 15 minutes or so, we want to come in here and kind of toss it around, rearrange it. That way we can get all of the steam all of the excess moisture on the outside evaporated off. And I'll also show you a trick about how to check and make sure that you've gotten enough moisture off of the outside. So again, just let it strain and drain and all that good stuff. And then about every 15 to 20 minutes, just come and shuffle it around. I'll record whenever I do it for the first time. That way you guys can see what I'm talking about. But that's about it for now. So in about 15 minutes, I'll get back with you guys and we'll give it a nice little stir, and that's it. Okay, it's been about 15-20 minutes, so we're just gonna stir everything around and then re-level it out. Give it another 15-20 minutes and then come back and do the same thing. Just want to do this until the outside of the popcorn or grain, whatever you're working with, except for brown rice, is completely dry, because we want all the moisture to be held in, excuse me, we want all the moisture to be held in the grain, not on the outside, so that the mycelium can kind of leach the grain, or the moisture, out of the grain. Alright, so I think probably 1 or 2 more times and we should be good, and I will show you all the trick to making sure that you get all of the moisture off of the outside. So another 15-20 minutes, guys. It is time consuming, but it's not hard. It's just annoying how long it takes. Okay, so I've stirred this around about 2 more times, giving it about 20 to 30 minutes in between each stir. And again, you don't have to be sterile at this point, because we do still have to sterilize it. So I feel like it's done. So I'm going to show you. And also, every time I stir it, I'm just looking around to see if anything's discolored. Just pick anything out that looks like it isn't good. I'll show you some of the stuff that I picked out. Oh, where's the camera? Where's the camera? There it is. So yeah, just anything that looks like it may have been burnt while you were cooking it, or too mushy, just pick that out. You can tell really well, like you can visibly see what needs to be picked out. So now we're going to fill up our jars, and again, this funnel isn't like necessary, but it does make it a lot easier. It's just a little canning funnel, I guess it is. And I'm going to show you how far to fill your jars, because you do want to leave room to be able to shake them enough. So I usually fill my pint jars up to the 300 milliliter mark. So right there. And that gives you enough room to give it a good shake once your mycelium starts to grow. And then my bigger quart jars, push that to the side. I'll show you how much I filled those up, and then I'll go and do the rest of them off camera. This funnel helps so much. I think I paid $6 for the funnel and my jar grabber thingy. That way you don't have to grab them when they're hot. You can use this to get them out. So, I mean, that's not too bad. $6 for both of those. There was another thing that came with it too, but I can't remember what exactly it was. So that's about enough for these jars. You just want to make sure that you're leaving enough room to be able to have room to shake them whenever it's time. So there is that, and I'm going to go finish the rest of this off camera, and we'll be right back. I just realized that I didn't even show you guys the trick to be able to tell if your popcorn is dry enough. So you want to take either some toilet paper or a really thin paper towel, and you want to go all the way to the bottom and grab a few kernels. And then you're going to place them on your paper towel and count to 30. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And there should be no moisture left on the paper towel. So it should be completely dry, and that is how you know. Really, you can count to 20. You don't have to count slow. Just make sure that there's no moisture on the paper towel after you wait for, 15, 20 seconds. And you're good. That's how you know when it's time to put it in the jars. But after you do it a few times, you won't even have to worry about that. You can kind of just run your hands through it until that it's dry enough. So you can run your hand through it, and if there's no like excess moisture on your hand, you're good to go. So again, I'm going to go finish this, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so we've got everything jarred up, and two 2-pound bags of popcorn. So 4 pounds of popcorn made, let's see, 8, 9, 10, or made 9 pint jars and 1 quart jar. So it would make about, I'd say about 5.5 quart jars, or about 11 pint jars if you just used all the same size. I always use modified lids. I just prefer them. But I'm going to show you. You can use unmodified lids with this, with any kind of grain jars. You just want to flip it upside down and make sure that way that it won't get a seal. And then you want to make sure, turn your lid and then turn it a half a rotation around to make sure that it's still on. Oh, that's not right. So you want it to be like on but loose. That way you can have the air escape. There we go, like that. You want it to be on, but you should still be able to jiggle it a little bit. So that would be if you didn't have the gas exchange and the injection port in your lid. It'd just be a solid lid. You flip it upside down. That way it can't have a seal whenever you put it in the pressure cooker or Instant Pot or steam bath. And yeah, so you don't have to cover those with aluminum foil. But the way I do it, I use modified jars, and you can use the micro pour tape or the paper tape. It is, if you get the 3M brand, it will say micro pour tape. If you get the knockoff or store brand, whatever, I use the Walgreens brand, and it will say paper tape. It won't have the micro pour on it, but anything that says paper tape is what you want if you're going to use the micro pour tape. And you can also use polyfill, like I said before. And what I like to do is just get a little blob of it, depending on how big your hole is, and use something that's kind of like a stick or anything that you can really like that will fit in the hole, and just kind of hold it down and poke around the sides until you can feel that it's actually in there. And then that is that. And then we're going to cover these with aluminum foil. I like to reuse my aluminum foil because it really doesn't matter. But we're going to take all of them and we're going to put aluminum foil over the top. If you use modified jars, if you decide, or lids, if you decide to not modify your lids, you really don't have to worry about aluminum foil. But we put aluminum foil over it so that water doesn't drip into our jars while we're sterilizing them. So I am going to go cover all these jars with aluminum foil, and then I'm going to show you again how I do it in the Instant Pot and on the stove. Okay, so if you are just working with a steam bath on the stove, you want a pot big enough to hold however many jars you want it to hold. And you need a trivet or something to keep your jars off the bottom. which you can also use. Some people use balled up aluminum foil. They call it pucks. I don't know about that. But you can also use your mason jar lids. So you just line those up in the bottom. And then you want to, like that. And then you'll just place your jars on top of those. And you can even layer them to make them a little higher if you want, so you can add a little more water. Your water can also come up about a little bit up your jars, so maybe like 1/3 of the way up your jars. But ideally you want to just cover the trivets and a little bit over them. And if you're doing it on the stove, first of all, you want to make sure you have a lid to keep the steam in. And second of all, you want to check it about every 30 to 45 minutes to see if you need to add more water. So it's a little more tedious doing it this way, but it is possible. And you're going to bring the water to a boil, place your jars in there, however many will fit, put the lid on, and then you're going to run it for 2.5 hours. So it takes a long time, and you want to make sure that you're checking it every 30 to 45 minutes to make sure that your water hasn't boiled out. But after that, you want to pull them out and let them sit for like a day, and then they should be ready to use. Don't be alarmed if you see water in the jars, condensation, whatever you want to call it. But in the sterilizing process, some of the water is going, or the moisture is going to be driven out of the popcorn. And for a day or two after they are done, we want to give them a shake once or twice a day so that the water can redistribute and be soaked back into the popcorn. That way, when we inoculate, there's no standing water on the popcorn. Like, we want it basically as dry as it was when we put it in. But, okay, so there's the stove, and now we're going to switch over to the Instant Pot, and, yep. Okay, so now for the Instant Pot, it's basically, ew, my Instant Pot needs to be cleaned. Didn't realize that, but it's okay. So it's basically the same thing. You want to place your trivet in the bottom. You can use lids for this too, or the jar rings, whatever you want to call it. So you just want to cover the trivet a little bit with the water. Place your jars in. Make sure they're covered with aluminum foil. You've got your gas exchange on. All that good stuff. And then we're going to place our lid on. Make sure that it's sealed. And then we're going to run this for 2 hours. And we want to make sure, I know I said this before, but turn off the keep warm. And yep, that's it. So after the 2 hours, same thing here. You might see a little bit of condensation or water that's been pulled out of the popcorn. But for a day or two, it's best to let them sit for a day or two before you inoculate them with whatever you choose to inoculate them with. And during those 2 days, while you're waiting, you want to give them a good shake, like once, maybe twice a day, to redistribute the water, make sure it gets all soaked back into the popcorn. And when you inoculate it, you don't want to see any standing water in the jars. Water and moisture is basically our enemy at this point. So you just want to be very careful with that. Make sure that your water is reabsorbed before you inoculate. And yep, that's just about it. So I will come back later and show you guys how these look when they come out of the pressure cooker. And that's about it. So I will see you guys in a few hours. Okay, I just pulled these out of the pressure cooker. It's the last 2 from this run, and I just wanted to show you guys how much moisture will be in these after you pull them out of the pressure cooker, so that you don't freak out thinking that there's too much moisture. You can see there's quite a bit of moisture, and especially in the bottom. So yeah, it takes about 2, maybe 3 days to reabsorb back into the popcorn. 3 days is on the long end, but just give it a shake. I'd say about at least 2 times a day for 3 days. Just kind of redistribute the water, shake it around a little bit, and then do that a couple of times a day for 3 days. And as soon as the water's reabsorbed, they are ready to inoculate. So that is it. That is the popcorn jars. And here soon, I'm going to go to the feed store up the street and get some oats, and we will figure those out together. So, alrighty, this is already a long video, but it's a long process. This is literally hours of work. But you're not really working most of the time because you're just sticking it in the pressure cooker or boiling it on the stove. So I guess it's long work. It's not really hard work, but there you go. That's how you do it. And I will see you silly beans in the next one. Bye.